Major Spoilers podcast covers news, reviews, and of course, spoilers, and goes into details about the topics discussed. So if you haven't read, listened, or watched the items we talk about, you might want to come back later.
I'm Matthew.
I'm Rodrigo.
And I'm Steven, and you're listening to the Major Spoilers podcast, the podcast for pop culture and comic fans.
In this issue, the big reveal that actually shocked us as we flash back to the asterisk-less debut of the Thunder-Thunder-Thunderbolts. We examine the hoax that nearly destroyed Gary, Indiana. There's rangers and robots and Klingons off the starboard bow. Scrape them off, Jim! As a great philosopher once said, Ba weep, Rana weep, Mini bomb. And all hell's a coming with him, because the Major Spoilers podcast is on the air.
Welcome to issue 1124 of the Major Spoilers podcast, 1,124 episodes. We have been doing this long. I got a kick out of a advertisement I heard on another podcast for another comic book podcast, and it's like, hey, we're one of the OG podcasts. We've been around since 2020, and I just laugh. And
I mean, to be fair, podcasts that are on in 2025 that started in 2020 are in a weird space because a lot of podcasts started in 2020.
Oh yeah,
and now they're dead.
But it's just like, man, you guys need to be around for 1,124 weekly episodes to call yourself one of the original longest running. We're not the longest running. But in order to make those claims in a commercial are asking for some serious sass. That's all I'm saying. Some serious sass. We started in the Carboniferous period. Yeah, 2008. Right. We started during a different crisis. We started this show in the middle of the housing crisis of 2008. So people that are like, we did ours in 2020, nothing compared to 2008.
Yeah.
Buster Keaton was still in the theaters when we started this show.
This show is heading for like its fourth recession. So
so there you go. Hey, speaking of things that are coming, I want to actually talk about some good things. Not the fact that we've been here for almost 20 years, but a few weeks ago, I did a review of The Art of Amphibia. That's the new book based on the Amphibia animated TV show. I've also done an interview with Matt Brawley, who is the creator of the show. And hopefully you've all listened to that. The people who have listened to it have said it's a wonderful interview, and I thank them for saying that. But if you want to find out more about Amphibia, you should definitely go listen to that show. But I finally received the physical copy of the Art of Amphibia book. I was hoping to have it at the same time that we did the interview, but let's just say there was a certain publishing company that was very slow in delivering stuff to PR reasons, and I already reviewed the electronic copy, so I'm not going to review the book again, but I will review the physical nature of this book. I don't need to go on what's on the inside, except that this is a beautiful book. This is not quite supersized large like a coffee table book would be, but it is something that you could display on a coffee table, and it is presented in such a way that it looks stunning. The cover in real life is so much better than what you would see in a digital copy that I reviewed on the podcast. I like these ones that have I don't know what it is. It's like is it a UV coating where part of it is just like a regular, smooth book cover. And then you get to that part that's like super shiny and kind of sticky. Like when you run your hand across the cover, you get caught on those parts of the book. To me, that's kind of the mark of the quality of a book is if they've done that kind of a two-process coating on it. So that's really cool. It is, I forget how many actual pages the book is, but it's not something like some art books have way too much heft that it's like, oh, if I look at this art book for more than 10 minutes, my legs are going to fall asleep. This is perfect for sitting and looking at for an extended period of time. So that is really good. Again, I've already talked about the content, but again, the paper quality, the paper stock of this book, really high quality as well. So if you are a fan of Amphibia, if you're interested in Amphibia, if you're interested in art books, especially art books about animated TV shows, which there are very few out there in the world, then definitely go for the physical copy of the Art of Amphibia book by Matt Brawley. It is great. That's all I will say. It is great. I'm glad that it came. I'd kind of given up hope, but even my youngest son, who's a huge fan of it, he instantly picked it up and has been reading it for the last couple of days again and again. So big win right there. This weekend sees the release of the Thunderbolts * movie. Are you guys going to go see it?
I'll probably see it when it hits Disney Plus in a week.
Oh, it'll be a little bit longer than that. This one's, I think, going to have some staying power.
It's been pretty well reviewed.
It has gotten a lot of reviews, except for, interestingly, this one review I read today over at, I think it was Variety, just kind of was like, I don't know what's going on. I don't know who any of these people are. And it's like, you obviously have not watched any of the other previous movies. Like, Black Widow is dead? How is anyone supposed to know that? Because there's a Black Widow movie, you dumbass. So, yeah.
That's where half of these characters are from.
Exactly, right? So, but the Rotten Tomatoes meter has it very high, both on the reviewer rating and the audience rating. So this is probably going to be, some people are saying this is a kind of a quote unquote return to form, although, I'll wait until I see it. I won't be seeing it because I don't have a movie theater anymore in my town of 20,000 people, which seems like a shock that a town of 20,000 people, one of the largest communities in Western Kansas, no longer has a movie theater. Thank you, AMC. Of course, it was to be fair, it was an AMC classic, which means that literally the last time that movie theater was updated. Anyone want to take a guess?
1946.
I know. It was when the first Avatar came out.
Correct. The first Avatar movie came out. That's when they last updated that theater. So
I knew it.
It was kind of a wreck. But I'm not literally going to drive 45 minutes to an hour and a half, depending on what theater is playing it, to go and see this. So I will unfortunately probably have to wait until it comes out on a digital release, probably within 30 days. Although the Theater Owners Association is really, really pushing, because, they're the affordable pastime. More on that in the Major Spoilers podcast pre-show. They're the affordable pastime. And so they're kind of putting a little bit of pressure on the studios to increase the window between theatrical and digital. So it may be 3 to 6 months before this gets anywhere, but we'll see. Rodrigo, were you going to go see it, do you think?
I think I will, largely because I've got a pick a thing for like a date night kind of a thing. So I'm like, let's go to the Cinnabar, the grown-ups only, we serve you food type movie theater. Let's have dinner and a movie simultaneously and see whatever's playing. So depending on how this does and how what's that other movie that came out?
Captain America versus the Hulk?
No, the one that's everybody talking about. With,
Sinners.
Michael B. Jordan.
Yeah,
I think,
Sinners.
Isn't it? Sinners. So depending on if Sinners is out and this is in on the specific day that we end up going, I might see Sinners instead, but very likely we'll go see Thunderbolts because I think it's like coming out this weekend, right?
Yeah. It's coming out this weekend. Sinners has already been out for 2 weeks now. So
yeah, so likely Sinners will be out, Thunderbolts will be in. So more than likely, I'm going to be watching this.
Okay, I would probably say, like the Minecraft movie, Sinners is probably going to stick around for as long as they possibly can keep it in the theaters, because it keeps, like Minecraft, it keeps growing in numbers as far as box office results go. So they're probably going to try to keep it around. There used to be a time, ladies and gentlemen. I know it's hard. Man, I had to talk to some students today, and I forget the context of what we were saying, but I was like, have you guys ever seen this? And they were like, well, I think that came out in 2020. Or I'm sorry, in 2000. And I was like, yes, it came out in 2000, years before any of you were born. And they were all like, well, fair. There used to be a time, ladies and gentlemen, where a movie would have a 10-week, unless it was just a horrible bomb, it would have a 10-week guarantee in the theaters.
And not only that, but then it would like make its way to like the dollar theater.
Then it would go to the dollar theater. And then it would make it to the airlines, and then it would make it to HBO, and then it would make it to VHS a year later. And you could calculate how much of a drop the movie would have over that 10-week period. There were 2 movies that totally changed that. The first one was, I think it was Jurassic Park, was it 3? Where the movie was so bad the first week, it had huge box offices. The next week it dropped like 80% because people were just like, yeah, we're not seeing this movie. Maybe it was 2. I don't know. What's the one where the Tyrannosaurus was in the backyard pool?
That's 3.
Okay, yeah, that was the one.
Wait, no, that's 2.
Okay, then it was 2. And then the other one, of course, was the Star Wars Phantom Menace, I believe. That one also was like, had a huge drop that they didn't expect from week 1 to week 2. And they're like, oh no, this movie isn't going to have a full 10-week run. So
really,
I think so. It was really hyped up. Everybody went to see it that first weekend, and they were like, pod
word of mouth
racing
was bad.
What a horror! I mean, there was a time also, ladies and gentlemen, believe it or not, that the prequels, episodes 1, 2, and 3, were considered bad Star Wars movies. Like episode 1 was like the worst Star Wars ever, and now people are like, nah, it's actually a pretty good movie.
Well,
yeah,
I'm sure there were. Oh yeah, absolutely. Like people that were kids when that came out, they're like, this is what Star Wars looks like.
Yep.
And also, those other ancient Star Wars movies are kind of fun, but very slow, right?
Yeah.
Or something like that.
I like the Ewoks. And then everyone thought, oh, Star Wars is for kids. Star Wars has always been about politics, everybody. Star Wars has always been about adult commentary on the world around us, and specifically, it's always been about politics. So for those of you that are like, no, Star Wars was made for kids. No, it wasn't. Anyway, Thunderbolts. I hear it's really good. Join the conversation about these stories and more over on our Discord server. You can join the Major Spoilers Discord server for free, and we'd love to see you grow to join our growing community of very awesome spoilerites. You can jump into the movie channel if you want to talk about the Thunderbolts, if you've already seen it. Again, this is for future people. But we also have the ability to censor your stuff. So if you want to do a spoiler, we have a spoiler, like I think it's 2 double
Discord
slashes.
has a spoiler. Yeah, it's like 2 straight lines, I think.
Yeah. And that'll hide whatever you want to say. And so I would encourage people to do that if you don't want to spoil it for everyone else. And everyone's really cool about doing that stuff. And everyone, actually, I don't think that I've had a terrible person join the Major Spoilers Discord in forever. I think there was one person that came in as a bot, and I guess because it's a bot, quickly got chased out. But everybody is just very friendly over there. So if you're looking for a cool community of people that are not hateful, we can have good dialogue on various topics, not politics. It's kind of verboten unless I'm the one that okays it, mainly because I'm the one that starts it. But if you'd like to have good conversations with people, then I highly recommend joining the Major Spoilers Discord server today. There is a link in the show notes. Okay, let's get to.
I got a question before we move on, if you don't mind.
Yes, please ask.
Do you guys remember that like routine? There was like a comedian, maybe musician guy, and he did all of the punctuations as noises, like
Victor Borgia.
Right. Was there one for an asterisk? Because I really want to call it like Thunderbolts or something like that.
I'm sure there is.
I gotta go back and watch it. I think everybody, like, whatever it is, if it's like or something, we should all call it Thunderbolts.
It probably is. Phonetic punctuation with Victor Borgia. You can find that on YouTube, and I'm sure it is in there. It's only a 4.5 minute piece. Let me see if they actually have it. I can't play the full thing here, but let's see if in the transcription. Oh, that's what we were talking about. Transcriptions. Show transcript. Let's see. Underline. Speech. Underline. Let's see. Left to right. Question mark. Yeah, I'm not going to scroll through this whole thing live.
Okay, that's all right. That's all right.
Thanks for getting me over there. I could probably do a search in there, but there's an applause at the end of his presentation, so people must like it.
Applause.
I figured one of you guys would know what it was, and it would have driven me crazy to try to find this. So thank you. Sorry to interrupt the whole show for this.
Oh, no, that's fine.
I just really wanted to know.
I would also, if you like this bit, the phonetic punctuation bit, there's something that is not funny, but it's serious and super well done, is go and look at the video of Kurt Vonnegut explaining every story and how stories work. It's super well done, and it just explained things wonderfully. For whatever reason, the punctuation and storytelling kind of go hand in hand for me. So if you want to kind of create a little end cap there, Victor Borge's phonetic punctuation and Kurt Vonnegut's nature of a story or the structure of a story.
Shape of stories.
Stories. Yeah. Cool, all right. Cool. Let us do some reviews. Okay. We got a couple of comics coming out this week, Matthew. It is Power Rangers Prime #6 from Boom Studios. What's going on?
So Power Rangers Prime is set in an entirely new continuity. Has nothing to do with the previous Boom Studios Power Rangers book, but it does have some things in common with previous Power Rangers stories. And so this particular issue focuses on one of the newest Rangers, the Blue Ranger, who is actually a refugee from the planet Aquitar. If you remember Aquitar, Rodrigo does. Aquitar was, of course, the home of the alien Rangers, who were guys with big rubber foreheads back in 96. And so Aquitar was destroyed. Eltar, the planet that Zordon comes from, has basically occupied the Earth. And there are many Aquitarian refugees who live on Earth. One of them is Mark. And Mark has been caught up in the orbit of a new Red Ranger who may or may not be Lauren Shiba of the Samurai Rangers. I'm not saying. Also, I don't remember. But basically, this entire issue is giving us Mark's story, and he has been a part of the team sort of unwillingly. This particular group of Rangers has sort of coalesced a little bit at a time. And of course, the world in which they live is not in any way accepting of Power Rangers. Power Rangers are actually considered to be vigilantes and creeps and monsters. And they're being hunted down by the VR troopers. I want to say VR troopers again. Because it's 1994 in my head. I met Sarah Brown from VR Troopers once. That's a whole thing. But anyway, in this particular issue, there are a few really wonderful things. And some of them are just overarching with Power Rangers Prime. First off, they do have a female red, which I love. They have a male pink, which I love because the color coding by gender is, to me, just as problematic as the decision to, argue about whether Trini being the Yellow Ranger and Zach being a Black Ranger was racist back in season 1. Probably, but also not intentional, and to avoid it going forward. But this is really all Mark, and Mark does morph full on for the first time, and we do get a look at his cool suit. And of course, it's a Triceratops suit, because why not? This does very, very strongly come from the original Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, but it also, actually, he may be a rhinoceros now that I look at him. Neither here nor there. Here's the thing you need to know. This book looks really amazing, and we talk sometimes, you will hear, especially old guys like me, talk about manga-inspired art, and I hope you could hear those air quotes. Joe Mi-Gyeong handles the art on this issue, and it does have elements, especially in the facial expressions and the way characters are kind of portrayed in their environment, that feel very manga-esque, but it's also very westernized in kind of a weird hybrid way that I rather enjoy. And here's the best part about it. All the Rangers look really good. But you can see moments in these stories where here is a background character who is of the same race as Doggy Kruger. And here are some mean kids who may actually be the alien Rangers of Aquitar picking on Mark at home. So as you go through, there are these little nice moments for the real hardcore fans, but this is also something entirely new and different. And I will say this about the VR troopers. This is the only time that I have ever felt that Ryan Steele and his VR troopers were actually used well. And they popped up a time or two since 1994. Not a good show, not necessarily a well-done show. And of course, they did choose to have 3 characters who were adapted from 2 different series, which means that they can't all be on screen at the same time. So you got that going for you, which is nice. All in all, though, this issue, I will say it does suffer a little bit from thrown in the deep end. No water puns with Aquitar intended. If you have not been, really well versed in the first 5 issues, there is little to no setup for this. So there isn't like a what has come before page. There isn't even an idea of, hey, these are the Rangers, this is what they've been doing or what you've been going into. It really does feel like here's chapter 5 of a 6-chapter, OGN, Q Stevens rant about how they should have just given us the OGN in the first place. But all in all, really, really well drawn and conceptually still has a lot of juice that I'm trying to understand. I feel like this is a long-term concept. I had thought Power Rangers Prime was a limited series, but it is an ongoing. And so there's more coming after this. 3 slices of meatloaf for Power Rangers Prime. Very interesting, above average, and most importantly, after 12 years of Boom Power Rangers month over month, sometimes multiple times per month, it's something entirely new from the Boom folks, which that's hard to do. That's not only hard to do, sometimes it's hard to get your fans to buy into when you do it. So you got to give Boom props for making a big change like this.
All right, there you go. Also out this week from Image Comics, it's We're Taking Everyone Down With Us, issue number 2. We had Matthew Rosenberg on the show. I interviewed him a couple of months ago, right ahead of the issue 1 release. The story is it's told from a girl's point of view, Annalise, and she is on an island which she thinks, hey, this is a cool place. There's robots that basically cater to my every need. My dad is a scientist. Yeah, there's some freaky things going on. Only to kind of find out from the reader's point of view that her dad is a supervillain, right? And the robots are evil robots, but they have been tasked, because the dad loves his daughter, they have been tasked with protecting her. So when the quote-unquote good guys, the lead, not Burt Reynolds, by the way, not Burt Reynolds, I should say, even though it looks a lot like Burt Reynolds, is not Burt Reynolds. When they show up to the island and attack and her father is killed, she really just wants to figure out what's going on. She wants to save her other people that are on the island, her father's sidekick / co-scientist, mad scientist, as well as whoever else she can save. And she comes to this realization that she can't. Also, there's some implications that the robot that is kind of her number one protector, which has a lot of other anti-weapon, anti-good guy features built in that may actually hold the consciousness of her father. We don't know that for sure, but it's a pretty explosive issue, pun intended. And I think how it ends with Annalise and the robot just basically in the middle of the water facing, pirates. I think the story has more legs than I thought it would. I thought it was going to be a little one-note thing, but I want to get to the part where she goes from being an innocent child to a mad scientist of her own. I've talked before about a book, and I mentioned it during the Rosenberg interview. Soon I Will Be Invincible, and it's told from 2 people's point of view. One, somebody who is about to become a superhero, and from the other point of view, which is the more important part of the story, is from the point of view of a mad scientist who has just escaped prison. I find that there's a lot of similarities in tone between this comic book and that prose novel. And so if you haven't checked that out, it's probably easily a 20-year-old book at this point. You might want to check it out because I find it very interesting. I also found this very interesting. The other thing that I think maybe some people, I don't know, everybody has a different take on how they approach media, But I think some people look at this with the shootings and the guns and the blastings and the robots killing people and the dead bodies and the apes that have been having scientific experiments performed upon them. I think people look at this and they think of it, or they see it as quote unquote serious, kind of like Batman is supposed to be serious. But I really think that this is a tongue-in-cheek, satirical look at these situations. Yes, it's a little bit more intense than what your Blazing Saddles might be, but I really look at this as more satire than anything else. And so I find it very humorous in a lot of spaces. Yes, it has got very serious tones. I probably would put this kind of in the same tone as Radiant Black, where there's a lot of funny stuff that goes on in that book, but it's also set in a more serious world. And so I think that's kind of how I would approach this book. We're only 2 issues in. I am very interested to see where this book goes. I don't know if it is an ongoing or not, but I like it enough to give this 4 slices of meatloaf out of 5. There is an Amazon affiliate link in our show notes if you want to pick it up for yourself in electronic form. If you are like so many people and your local comic shop is closing down, very much like my local movie theater is closed down, and my local comic book shop has closed down, and our local Sears has closed down, and so many other stores have closed down, at least there's one place we can go to. Our friends at Amazon, I say that in sarcastic tone, our friends at Amazon.com. You can go and make a purchase there. If you make a purchase of these comic books or anything else through that Amazon link, a little bit comes back our way. But I really enjoy the art in this. I enjoy the writing in this. We're taking everyone down with us, number 2, out this week from Image Comics. Let's take a peek behind the curtain and see what the future holds. And the person who looks into the future and tells us what's coming down the pipe is none other than our very own Rodrigo.
It is I, Rodrigo, looking into the future to tell you about a comic that talks about something that happened in the past. Oni Press is putting out a comic. So this comes out May 14th, called Dark Regards #1. And it is the true story of an internet hoax that got really out of control and ended up kind of weird and violent at times. So I didn't even know about this.
Yeah,
I didn't even know about the original happenstance
until I started talking with the PR people at Oni, and they're like, "Oh no, this is real serious." I don't know if we can get Dave Hill on the show to talk about it, but he's the one that went through this whole experience, and he's the one that's written the comic. So yeah, I'm very interested to see what this comic has in store for us.
Yeah. David Hill is a comedian, and he basically started trolling black metal bands and record labels, and did a lot of setup to do it. And here's the thing: the comic is kind of a fictionalized version of it, and this seems interesting, so I'm kind of like, well, don't give me I kind of actually want to find out what really happened. But this is very tongue-in-cheek. It casts the black metal fans, or like band members / record label owners, as real weirdos, who are like very funny in kind of in a self-analysis, like lack of self-analysis sort of way. And it, for example, includes that maybe somebody had an actual kind of religious vision in the middle of things, which is not something that you necessarily hear about real things that happened. Here's the thing, and here's why I think that maybe it won't be so hard to get Dave Hill on here. When I went looking for this, because I didn't know about the original incidents, when I went looking for this, I literally could not find anything that wasn't a reference to this comic or his book.
Right? So where's the hoax?
It was very, like, I literally couldn't. I read this earlier today before the show, and I spent the time between reading that and the show trying to find this. And I couldn't find anything that wasn't a direct reference to this comic coming out. And I'm like, is the hoax that this hoax actually didn't happen? Probably not. I just think that maybe Oni has really finally perfected the alchemy to the SEO.
Yeah.
So this wasn't bad. It was funny. I've seen pictures of Dave Hill now, and his representation in the comic is like cute and funny. You know, he's kind of he's not like a super duper ripped guy or anything like that. He's like a normal looking guy, and he looks good in the comic, and it's funny. They have him in like this like corpse makeup and stuff. It's good times, and again, the real gems here are like the death metal aficionados. They have like really cool designs, and I'm like, are these based on real people? Because I want to see pictures of these people because they look freaking rad, and also kind of funny, in its own way. So, I don't know, man. Like this seems like it could open some bad wounds again.
Yeah.
I don't know where the death metal community is on this situation nowadays. I feel like the book doesn't take them very seriously, and I don't know much about them, but there's like my natural kind of baby duck nature is just like, well, they'll make fun of them, and this book kind of does.
Yeah.
So I have some trepidation about it. I'm gonna give it 3.5 slices of meatloaf.
Okay. The band in question is called Witch Taint. And you can definitely find a lot of information about them on the internet. Going back at least to 2019. Maybe further, but I'm only on page 3 of Google's search results, but we all know that Google search is broken.
Well, and that's the problem, right? I think that's part of the problem is like this, it's really unfortunate because it's this perfect storm of like, they're selling this comic and they're selling the book and they're doing a good job of that. And also Google has continued to degrade probably since this, not because of this hoax, but since this hoax happened, has only degraded. So it's hard to find things that are older than this. And of course, it doesn't help that the first thing that comes out is a large language model take on it, right? It's like, how accurate is this? I always just skip the first block nowadays. Anyway, not to get into that. Dark Regards looks funny, happened in real life, supposedly. Curious to see where it goes.
There you go. Again, ladies and gentlemen, if you want more information about this, want to share your thoughts on any comic books that are out this week, we've got a comic book channel right there over on the Major Spoilers Discord server. Also, big thank you to everyone who supports this show. Again, supporting this show since 2008. We thank you so much for your support, both to past, present, and future patrons. And this week, we're sending our thanks out to Kevin King. Thank you, Kevin. Kevin became a new silver level patron. That's only $5 a month. It's not that big of a deal. We do so much for you for the last, almost 20 years now for this podcast, almost 20 years from the Major Spoilers site, 2006. We will be 20 years old. 2026 will be 20 years old. But small monthly contribution of $5 ensures that this show continues far into the future. Also, Kevin now has instant access to literally hundreds of hours of the Major Spoilers podcast pre-show, where this week I talk about my introvertedness when it comes to large crowds of people that I don't know anyone about. And I couch this discussion in the form of a wedding that I went to this weekend. We also kind of go off on a comment that was made over on Variety, where a film exec is basically saying, hey, movies are the affordable pastime, and how ridiculous that comment was. You can go and listen to that right now. Like, listen, if you're like, I don't know, if I sign up now, aren't I going to miss that pre-show because that pre-show was released like weeks ago whenever I'm listening to this? Hello, future people. No. You get instant access to all of our past content, an entire catalog. Like literally, if you're impressed that we've made it 1,124 episodes of this show, you should see how much stuff is waiting for you right now over at patreon.com patreon.com/major spoilers. That's where you need to go to sign up today. Be like Kevin King, be a king, and become a patron today. Thunderbolts movie is in theaters this week. And to tie into that, we read Thunderbolts Justice Like Lightning from Marvel Comics. Kurt Busiek writing the main Thunderbolts story, but there are some crossover stories where like the Thunderbolts versus the Hulk, the Thunderbolts team up with Spider-Man. I forget what else. I will be completely upfront and honest with you. We're reading the Epic collection of this. I didn't read any of the other stuff that wasn't the main Thunderbolts story, and it read just fine. So like when it came to Spider-Man, as much as I love Spider-Man, I was just like, yeah, I can skip over this. When it came to Peter David's Hulk, I was like, yeah, I'm definitely skipping over this, and just stick with the main Thunderbolt story. And I thought I read fine. I'm not missing anything out by jumping into those tie-in issues, Matthew, that everyone loves so much.
Agreed. And this is a time in Marvel's history where those tie-in issues for Thunderbolt specifically weren't the central, theme of things, because this was during the time that they had farmed out the main Marvel heroes over to the Image Comics staff, and they were doing the Heroes Return or the Heroes Reborn or the Heroes Implode. I don't know, whatever it was. But the thing that has always gotten me about Thunderbolts is they managed to keep it a secret. I remember buying issue 1 off the stands after having read 2 Hulk issues that came out before the first issue hit the stands, and being like, oh man, this looks like a cool team. I wonder if they're going to do all the thing and the thing and the what?
Yeah, the greatest trick the devil ever pulled was proving that he didn't exist. The greatest trick the Thunderbolts ever pulled was convincing the world they were heroes.
Exactly. Baron Zemo.
Yeah, so so the big reveal at the end of issue 1 is that, hey, Baron Zemo and his Masters of Evil have come out of hiding or whatever now that the Avengers are gone, and they have redressed themselves to be heroes. Some of them, ancient step-downs from World War II heroes. That's who Baron Zemo plays. And they're going to be the good guys that are going to replace the Avengers, or not replace the Avengers, because, of course, the Avengers cannot be replaced. I don't know how Baron Zemo, how people were fooled by his accent. But yeah, they fool the world into thinking that they are the good guys until the whole thing falls apart.
As it always does. Baron Zemo does not always have terrible accent in comics. Baron Zemo is perfectly capable of talking like Roger from Iowa. And I think that is also important. What I don't understand is how nobody just looked at Meteorite and went, yeah, that's Moonstone and she's evil.
It's a different costume. It's a different costume.
It's a different costume. Same woman, same face.
Is it though?
It is.
I mean, can't you put a little makeup on and totally look like a different person?
I mean, the thing is, these are superhero comics.
True.
So, some superheroes were full mask, but some of them just cover out like one eye, and people are like, "Who is that?"
Yeah.
Why it's
I think so. The entire story arc over the 12 issues are, once we realize that it's the Masters of Evil and Baron Zemo up to no good, we slowly start to see Baron Zemo's plot of trying to get access to all the big government tapes, all the secret files that are just waiting to be released. The JFK file, the RFK file, whatever happened to the Epstein list, all of those things he wants to get out and into the world. But surprisingly, at the end of the day, he's actually able to get into that and then unleash his sinister scheme upon the world. At the same time, you've got another story where some of the Thunderbolts, the team of the Thunderbolts, the Masters of Evil, are actually starting to enjoy their role as heroes. And so the question becomes can a villain truly change their ways and become a good guy, or are they destined to be bad guys forever? And so that's kind of the big question that is approached as we hit the end of the issue, where they do have to try and work with Iron Man, who at this point no one knows is Tony Stark. But they're trying to work with Iron Man and the rest of the Avengers that they're able to rescue to finally take down Baron Zemo. and then they disappear.
Or do they?
Okay. One of the things that I was, I guess, really surprised about this issue is that they did do the big reveal at the end of issue 1.
Yeah.
I wonder, because as I was reading it, I was like, they could have really pulled the audience along for a long time. Because there's this whole issue where, and again, it's kind of skippable. You can kind of read the book in parts, where the Black Widow is confronting a couple of the Thunderbolts. And she's like, I've kind of figured you guys out. Let me tell you a story about some other bad guys that joined the Avengers and what happened to them. And so she's telling the story of Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch. And then she's just like, hey, listen, if you really are who I think you are and you're truly changing your way, then prove it, right? And at that point, this is late in the series, but even before that, I was like, if you just took out all the stuff that was the actual reveals where they're using actual names and you're just hinting at stuff, instead of saying, oh, yes, I used to be such and such a bad guy. I think there's a lot of stuff you could have probably teased the audience for 4 or 5 issues in this 12-issue arc of letting the audience slowly figure it out for themselves. Like, hey, this person kind of does have the same powers as Moonstone. And hey, this guy, even though he doesn't look like, what's his name, Tinker or Thinker or whatever the tech guy is in this, he kind of acts like that guy. Do you think that these are really bad guys in disguise? I think that then when you got to issue 4 and people were all invested in these new heroes that were replacing the Avengers, and then you pull the curtain back. Personally, I think that would have made a more enjoyable story overall. Rodrigo, you said, do you agree with that or not?
I do think that the reveal had to come at the end of the first issue, because the longer you drag it out, even if you're doing a good job of it, of stringing people alone, the more likely you are to have a leak and have it ruined. Right? So just right off the bat, getting it out there is fine, especially because this is really about the Thunderbolts. Like, the main characters of this thing are the former Masters of Evil navigating, trying to pull off their super secret evil plan, and changing their minds or not changing their minds or betraying each other along the way, right? So you kind of have, if that's the direction you're going to go, then you have to do it.
Yeah.
There are a couple things that I think are just stuff left on the table that could have been a lot better. And really, they all revolve around Jolt, right?
Yeah.
So 3-4 issues in, a new superhero who is not a former villain joins the Thunderbolts. And I'm like, okay, here we go. It's going to be they're going to be like, oh, what can we say around or what can we not say around? Never a problem. She never suspects anything. And both the initial reveal and the eventual public to the audience and the eventual public reveal happens kind of in a completely unmotivated way. Like, the first time around, Baron Zemo just says, oh, by the way, we're the Masters of Evil, as we all already know. And then at the end, it's like, oh no, they figured out who we are. How did they do it? Zemo is like, I did it because you guys are getting too comfortable being superheroes. It's like, okay, so you threw away your whole plan because you were mad that Mach 1 was getting a sneakers deal or something. I don't know. It's just I was like, okay, the emotional core of this story. Here's the thing. I read these when they came out. I remember this being a lot more the emotional core of this is Jolt finding this stuff out.
Yeah,
but it really isn't. Yeah. I wanted her to figure it out on her own without anybody telling her, and then confront them and confront, especially the ones that are turning good, right? Like Songbird, Atlas, Goliath, Mach 1. Yeah. To confront them and run away, right? And be like, oh, I'll never trust anyone again, run away. And then maybe later come back, and then the good guys turn good, the bad guys stay bad, or whatever. But she's just kind of like, what? And then it's over and they go away. And I don't remember what happens in the next volume, but it's, to me, like, this isn't bad, but the problem is that this is a superhero book.
Mm-hmm.
And like just big chunks of it are like fighting.
Yeah.
And like that seems like a weird thing to say about a superhero book from Marvel Comics. And it's not like I don't like action in comics. I like a good fight scene as much as the next guy. But it's like this comic has an unusual premise. And I think it may be called for a slightly unusual format or storytelling device or system. And it doesn't have that. It is told exactly as an Avengers book, except this time all the Avengers have a secret, not just, pick one Vision, right? Yeah.
Yeah, no. Do you remember what was the DC series in the 90s? Was it Heroes in Love, Young Heroes in Love?
Yeah, Young Heroes in Love.
Yeah, that one focused, it was interpersonal relationships and the occasional fight scene. You're right. That's mostly probably a little bit more could have been inside of this, right? More of that interpersonal, should we, shouldn't we, contemplative moments, what can we do or not do? A lot of people really like this. A lot of people like this series. And the reason why I read it is because people were like, this is probably the closest thing we're going to get to what the Thunderbolts movie actually is.
Really?
And by the way, I don't know if that's true either. I mean, reading this, but I do know that some of the earlier reviews have said that asterisk that you see in the title, that actually has a major reveal at the end of the movie. So
sure.
Figure out what that's going to be. I don't know, but I was okay with this book. I guess I don't really have any major problems or not. Matthew, are there any major problems in this series?
I feel like for me, the biggest problem is that, and again, this is a 90s book. Mm-hmm. It feels very modern. And at this point in time, 90s storytelling was very, hey, look over there. Oh, it's a new guy. Oh, he's so powerful. He killed everybody. Oh, wait, there's a new guy who just killed him. Okay, wait, hang on. Wait, Captain America's. Oh, okay, what? So having this book kind of settle down into a more Silver Age premise was kind of, gobsmacking to us, but also something that Busiek does in the Marvel Universe in a way that nobody since Stan has done is Stephen likes to talk about Stan talking about that illusion of change, how, it's basically the same. This book is full of that. You don't have 3 issues in a row where something isn't shaking up, where maybe the Fixer's a traitor, maybe Zemo's on the outs, maybe Zemo's back in. Oh, what's Moonstone manipulating Hawkeye about over here? What's all this stuff? There's a lot taking place and a lot of different, there's costume changes, power changes, weird interactions going on. And it feels, reading it now, it feels like it's going much faster than I remember it going. And I read all 100 and whatever it was issues of Thunderbolts, and then I came back and they kept trying to launch vamp it, and
they've tried to redo it multiple times. Like the Wilson Fisk tried to make them when he was mayor. Well, tried to have his Thunderbolt squad, which was like Green Goblin and whoever else in there. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's why I'm surprised that people are saying that this original version is most like the movie, because the movie really is giving me a Suicide Squad vibe, and that's
true.
Like the anti, that's like the like not Eddie Brock, like the other Venom Thunderbolts, right? Was it Eddie Brock like leading the Thunderbolts there as Venom for a while?
No, it was Mac. It was Mac Gargan,
right? Matt Gargan with like the Boots Venom.
Yes. Gargan had the Venom symbiote because at the time Eddie was anti-Venom, but
right,
yeah, and the whole, just that whole,
like that's what the movie looks like to me, like, kind of like this squadron that everybody knows they're like villains. They're just like trying to help or whatever.
Right. They're trying to overcome their own bad press.
See, now you really want to see the movie even more, ladies and gentlemen, because now we have to figure out, is this like the comic books? Is this not like the comic books? What's going on? You'll have to tune in next week and see if Rodrigo actually went to the movie or not.
He didn't. I'm the future people. But also, I do think that the real star of this is Bagley, because this is post New Warriors, or actually it may be simultaneous to New Warriors, and this is coming,
Probably
I want to say
before.
During the Spider-Man run. He left New Warriors in 93, 94 to take over Spider-Man, and I think he was doing 2 books. And one of the wonderful bits about Bagley is Bagley can draw really, really fast. And one of the terrible things about Bagley is that Bagley can draw really, really fast. And so there are times when Mark Bagley is like, I'm going to draw really, really fast. And you're like, oh, wow, that looks amazing. That looks kinetic. That looks freaky. If you look at the cover of number 7 with Hawkeye, there's something wrong with Hawkeye's head. But again, every artist has their peccadillos. Every artist has their moments. And I feel like this book, under a different artist, even somebody who had a very similar style, you get somebody in there like, I don't know, Eric Larson. You get somebody who has that 90s kind of kinetic sensibility and sharp edges and big, cool guys with Thunderbolt. Oh, he is bulky. I'll grant you that. But yeah. Also, this era of Marvel is interesting in that you have characters who keep getting like revamped and rebooted and brought back, but every time they come back, they're in their original costume. So we're just like, hey, who's this? I don't know. Who's it look like? It looks like a guy from 20. Oh, yeah, it's him. That's one of my favorite parts of this. And Busick is one of those guys who researches. He doesn't, So, there are writers who will go, I'm going to write what I want, and I go and I write the thing. Busick is like, well, there's this story from 1984 that I really kind of want to do a tie in there, and I bring it all back together. And I kind of respect that. It feels like, that Mark Gruenwald take on Captain America, where you're not necessarily cleaning up messes that someone else left behind, but there are moments where, hey, here's this character that, like the Rat Pack. No one's used the Rat Pack since the 1970s.
Yeah.
They're here in issue 1, and they've always been active, and it's just one of those, they've always been around. They've just never been a big threat. And
oh, no, guys, it's the Rat Pack.
Oh, we must fight the Rat Pack.
And it's like Dean and
Sinatra
and
Joey.
I mean, I started reading comics in the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe very late 80s, and I did not know who the Masters of Evil were. Mm-hmm. So to me, when I got to the end of that issue, it's like, oh, they're secretly bad guys. And at this point, I was used to there being a bunch of characters that I didn't know about that everybody referenced, like they've been around forever. And I was like, that must be what's happening.
Yeah.
I was familiar with the Beetle because he had been in the Spider-Man cartoon, and I was familiar with Zemo because one of the random Captain America comics I had were like had Baron Zemo in them. So I was like, okay, I know what's happening. I know what's going on. But I feel like even the Masters of Evil themselves is kind of Busick going like, remember the Masters of Evil?
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is about 4 years after that big Masters of Evil storyline too, which in comic terms is an eternity, where they nearly killed Hercules and they ripped up Captain America's picture of his mommy and destroyed Avengers Mansion. That was the big defining, it's the scariest the Masters of Evil have ever been.
Sure.
And then they transitioned to this. And at the time, I remember thinking, hey, they gave them such depth and they gave them such interesting stuff that they had to turn them hero. And, this is kind of, and this is probably the closest that I'm going to come to an indictment of Busick and Bagley on this, but this is kind of the point where we start seeing there are no heroes, there are no villains, everybody has their own agenda, and we're all just fighting each other. that Civil War thing that is for the last 20 years been pretty much the way of the world.
Yeah, we're heading that way, definitely. You guys remember there were some Thunderbolts and like Avengers Forever.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
It's like one of the future teams has Songbird in it.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, but this was only like a few months after she had been debuted in Thunderbolts, so it's like, oh, in the future she becomes an Avenger. Cool,
she's an Avenger, and she
now
totally did.
Like,
for a minute,
just like everybody else.
So bottom line, I think that in this book, I think it's a solid story. I understand why Marvel would want to package this as, an epic collection and include these other tie-in issues. Honestly, they're not important to anything that happens in the main book, but read them for fun, whatever. Read them, just see the Hulk do the Hulk thing and Spider-Man doing his Spider-Man thing, and whoever else was, I forget what the other, there's like a flashback
Heroes for
issue.
Hire. Yeah. There's the flashback, which is like the whatever, like 12th week. You know what I mean? Like the
5th week.
Yeah,
like when the month has an extra week kind of thing.
The -1 issues, were a 5th week event.
Yeah, and those are fine. I mean, you can. I like I said, I did not read them. I started to read one of them. I was like, this is not going to have anything to do with the rest of the series.
Nope.
And it's fine.
And in fact, that's famously one of the things that Marvel learned with the flashbacks. Nobody picked them up, and they're like, "We can't do this again.
Yep.
Like we can't do things that are like cool and fun, because nobody will buy them. We had like everything has to be continuous."
Mm-hmm. Yep, $50 for this edition that you can get on Amazon right now. That's a physical copy, not the digital. I think this was a fun enough read that I would probably say, yeah, pick it up. It's got some good stuff in there. I think you've got some good character development. I think you've got some interesting reveals. I think you have the interesting question of, nature nurture kind of going on of, hero, can they be, or villain, can they be a hero or not? So I rather enjoyed it. I give it a definitely, check it out to a buy, not a must buy, but definitely a buy, going into Thunderbolts, weekend. Matthew, what's your final thoughts?
Oh, this is rush right out into buying frenzy for me. And I say that even though we just spent some time, where I'm like, well, in response, but this is, I feel like this is kind of a blueprint. This is a book to me that kind of reoriented not just, the Avengers titles, but Marvel as a whole.
Cool. Rodrigo, final thoughts from you.
I remembered this differently. That's not necessarily a bad thing, but I read through this whole thing and I wanted more character stuff. Like there's a point where like the new Masters of Evil show up and they're all mad because they're the Masters of Evil.
Yeah.
And I was like, it'll be great if like Zemo gives something awake here because of his pride, but he doesn't. It's like, again, anytime I'm like, oh man, this would be great if this happened, like it didn't. It kind of becomes a superhero. It's very much a like capes and tights comic with like this like really zesty hook that these guys are secretly villains. If you think about it that way, it's a lot more enjoyable. This is definitely a borrow for me. And possibly a route through your stuff, because I'm pretty sure I have at least the first 3 issues somewhere.
Yeah, probably everybody has a copy of this laying in their bin somewhere.
It was a big deal.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, Matthew. Thank you, Rodrigo. And thank you, dear listener, for being part of the Major Spoilers experience. If you found some value in the show and you want to give a little bit back, a little value back, then that's where you head over to Patreon, patreon.com/Major Spoilers, where you can find even more fun there. Next week on the show, it's a general topic. Who knows what we're going to talk about? But it's probably going to be comic book related. Why? Because we know that you love comics. We do too. And we will talk with you soon.
If I had the X-ray vision of a Superman, I could save a few bucks and stand around and read through the covers of the comics on the stand. But although every other page would be backwards, I suppose I could still read the evens and the odds. Well, I don't know. Guess I haven't thought this all the way through. Plus, as soon as the comic book store guy knew, they kicked my butt out on the corner. What a major spoiler. What a major spoiler. What do you think about right away. If I was hulking green or gray, I could just bust through that brick wall, take their comic books away. But then the little meat would deal with all the tanks and bombs and guns. Have you ever tried to read a series with all that going on? Guess I need to rethink this plan. How would I back and board my comics with such huge hands? Guess I already told ya what a major spoiler. What a major spoiler. Yeah, yeah, yeah. What a major spoiler. What a major spoiler. Stark raving rich like a man of iron. I might not be surprised to find that I might actually have the heart cold to follow an entire storyline. But would I really even need to read up on all those escapades? I mean, who needs such distractions when your sister's such a babe? But the downside is such a beast. Being shot up in a fun, be in the Middle East with a gang sign throwing soldier. What a major spoiler. What a major spoiler. Yeah, yeah, yeah. What a major spoiler. Whoa, 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 whoa. What a major spoiler.
This podcast is copyright 2025 by Major Spoilers Entertainment, LLC.